Hello all, welcome to Gyan Easy. Today we are going to talk about JSON and how to use it in Salesforce. So today's agenda would be, first we'll see what is JSON and why we require JSON, understanding JSON as a string, how to form it, how to read it, how to understand it. Then we'll see using JSON in Salesforce, how we can use it. And finally, we'll see different classes, utilities available in Salesforce like JSON, JSON generator, JSON parser. Uh, in today's session, we'll see JSON utility only. If time permits, we'll see JSON generator and parser. Else, I'll be having another session where we'll cover JSON generator and parser separately. So, what is JSON? So, JSON is JavaScript Object Notation. It is lightweight format for storing and transferring your data, or you can say transporting your data. It is very easy for human to understand as it's self-describing, and at the same time it is very easy for machines also to generate these JSONs and parse them. Okay, and the best part of JSON is that it is a text format. That is, it is completely language independent. Since it is text, any language can understand it, read it, write it. And JSON is like oftenly used for transferring data from one application to another application, from server to web page, or from web page to server, and so on. These are the general use cases that we see in JSONs. Okay, so why we should use JSON? Okay, so there are other formats as well which are available, but why JSON is better? As we discussed earlier, JSON is going to be used for transferring data from one application to another application. So that means JSON is widely used for transporting the data. Now, why it is widely used? Reason is it is just a text, and since it is a text, it is completely language independent, completely platform independent. In any platform this can be used, and that's the reason why this is most used format. And another best part about JSON is it's very lightweight compared to any other formats of transferring data. So that's the reason why JSONs are used widely, easy to parse, easy to understand, lightweight, string-based format, and program independent, language independent. So these are the few reasons why JSON is getting used. Now we'll understand the JSON syntax. Okay, so JSON syntax, I'll go on my notepad and I'll demonstrate you. So JSON syntax goes something like this. So it is always a key value pair. See, so key colon value. That's the syntax that you have with JSON. It is always a key value pair. Now, this key can be of any data type, value can be of any data type. I mean, there are a few supported data types. Out of those, it can be any data type, right? And this key value pair is then wrapped with curly braces. So this is how this syntax goes. So you have key colon value, and then you have curly braces. So curly braces, key colon value, curly braces. This is the syntax. Now if you have number of key value pairs, those are just separated with comma. So let's say key 1 colon value 1 comma key 2 colon value 2. So that simple format it is, and hence it's very much readable and understandable. You just need to understand, okay, this is key and for which I have got this value. So that's simple format that you have with JSON. Now with example we'll understand it. Before that, let's understand which all different syntax, or which all different, I would say, data types are supported in JSON. So in JSON, string, then number, boolean, null values, then array, that is your list of data types, and then you have JSON object. So these are different data types are supported in JSON. So when we talk about string, so how strings are represented in JSON is something like this. So I would say like I have one requirement, or I would say, let's say name. Okay, so name colon, now what is the value? Let's say Gyan is the value. So this is just a simple way of writing your strings in JSON. Okay, now there is another data type, as we said, like number. So let's say we have, let's say, value. I mean, I would say amount. So amount value is, let's say, 1000. So this is number, or basically you have currency or any such a data type you can have. So number format. Okay, then it supports your Boolean format. That means if you have something like is active, so let's have one parameter is active, and this is active, whether it is true or false you can pass it. So that way these strings can be represented. Then if we want to pass null value, so let's say uh, there is phone, and phone we need to pass null, so we can say null. So this is how we should pass null values in JSON. Similarly, uh, JSON can contain array. Array in the sense I have multiple values for this key. So let's say key is employees. Okay, so we can say employees, and there we can have number of values. Okay, so I can have multiple employees, right? So how to present your values in your array cases? So it's just a your square brackets. So if you see employees colon square brackets, this is value. This entire would be value. Whatever you pass inside this square braces is value for this employees key. Now we can have values like anything. For example, I can have just names. So let's say I have three employees which will be comma separated. So let's say it's John, let's say it's Ram, let's say it's Shyam. So this way now I have three employees that I have passed. Okay, so this is array of strings. So you have employee as one key which has values three. So those three values are passed in just a square braces. So in short, this key has only this one value, but in this one value we have number of inner values. So that's your array. And finally you have another JSON string. So, well, I mean, let's take example that I have similar thing, that is employees. Okay, so but now in employees, I want to pass not something like single strings. I want to pass their information, like who is John. So no, name is like name John, right? And then you have something like email, comma, you will have some email, right? So this kind of values you can pass. So email you can pass j@abc.com. So comma separated, these values can be passed. This is your JSON object. In short, what we can think of JSON object is we can just remove other string. So just this as a single string that you have can be passed as a data type. So if I pass here this JSON, so you have JSON inside JSON. If I pass this here as separate thing like name, then I say contact, and inside contact I pass these strings. So contact is having this info. So this kind of details when you pass, this is called as JSON object. So JSON inside your main JSON, right? So this way we have these supported types. There are 6 supported types: string, number, boolean, then null values, array, and finally another JSON object, right? So now let's take one example and understand JSON and how we can generate. For this example, JSON we can speak now. Okay, now let's take example that there are 2 applications. One is, let's say, SAP, another one is Salesforce. Now Salesforce contains, let's say, customer and its order details. So let's say we have customers, that is account details, and under that account we have some orders that that customer has purchased. Those order details are present in Salesforce. And there is SAP system which passes customer ID and get details about orders. Okay, and vice versa. Like we can think of other way that SAP contains customer and order details, and Salesforce requires those order details. So Salesforce will pass customer ID and get those order details. In any scenario, either scenario, we need to pass certain detail and get response back. So we are passing customer ID, we are getting response in terms of its order details. Now when response is going to come, let's assume that this is JSON transfer transport. So basically we are passing JSON, getting JSON response. So in that case, let's say JSON we need to generate and send these details. So how this JSON would be structured? So one who is sending customer ID, we need to give now order details to them. So how would we structure that JSON? So JSON response would be structured something like this. So any JSON would be starting with curly braces. Then we need to pass key values. So let's say, we have status. Okay. So our status would be, let's say, success, failure, that whatever it may be, we need to pass. So let's say in our case success. So this is one attribute that we're passing in this JSON. So similarly, we will be having more, like whatever customer ID that we received, we need to send back. So comma customer ID. So we say customer ID, and we can now pass value. Let's say customer ID that we had received was C0001. Now here if you see, I have given space here, and in above example I have not given space. So you can give space or you don't give space, that would not matter. So but better you avoid spaces, or you can have one space here, right? This way you can structure it. Comma. Now let's say we need to pass transaction ID as well. So in any your data transportation, you will get something like this. So you will get status, customer ID, or whatever inputs system had received, and then transaction ID and so on. So let's form it something like T001. Okay, so this is transaction ID, let's say. And now this system is going to, or we need to send orders, right? So orders, we'll have to say orders. And there is not only one order, right? There can be one order or many orders. So we'll have to pass array of the orders. So here our array starts. So you will pass colon array, right? And then let's say we have one more parameter. So those parameters will keep on adding. Let's say we need to pass size. So number of orders that we have. So let's say we have two orders. So we'll say size colon and we'll pass 2, and so on. Like let's say we have one more that finally we need to pass one message. There can be any message, we just need to pass that message. Okay, hard coded message is there. Okay, so this way you have formed your JSON, right? So if you observe, key value pairs are there, and all these key value pairs are separated by comma. Now here in this case we are just passing, let's say, successfully processed is the string that we are just passing. Okay, now in this orders, if you see, it is a list of orders, that is array of orders. So each of them will have to pass separately. Now how would that go? So we can have that as separated like this. Now under orders we can have one or more order. So how would you pass these orders? So as we discussed earlier, we can have JSON string. So one order will be represented by one JSON string. Okay, so there is one JSON, that is one order. So this is second order, this is third order. This way we can create JSON string for orders. So now if you see, key is orders which contains many orders. So we have separate, I mean we have that array as square braces. Under that we have curly braces. Each curly brace is representing one order, right? So let's say we have three orders, so our size would be 3 in that case. And now these orders, we are just going to now have details about these orders. So let's say order has one ID, so we'll say order ID. Let's say order ID is ON0001. Now order will have few more details. We can pass those details, like order will have amount, so we can have amount of the order is, let's say, 50,000. Then we can have date, we can have so many different things, like let's say date is, we will pass date as key, and we might pass it as something like 12/07, 12 July 2018. This way we can pass date, right? And so on. I mean, this is one order. So we can have such a multiple orders. I'll just copy paste now. So this is my second order, this is my third order. Each order is separated with comma string. That's it. Now order IDs can be different. So I have this as order number, let's say 11/0011. Let's say I have another order 0049 or 48, right? So amounts can be different. Let's say 70,000, 20,000, and so on. I mean, dates can be different then, and all other parameters can be different, right? So let's say 27 and so on, right? So one order is, I mean, one orders parameter is containing these three orders this way. Now if we make it more beautiful, so it will look like something like this. So it's just a key value pair. Now we're done with this first order. So similarly we have this second order. So when we get data, we get data something like this, and hence we need to understand the data. This is how your data is going to look like. So this is how strings are formed. So this is how we should understand these orders. Sometimes we just get scared about this, um, your brackets, so what is it about and all. So this is just a array, right? And inside array you have string. Now inside this, now this can be more complex. Like in this we can have inner string, like we might have multiple locations for this order, so we'll pass locations. So let's say we have locations. Okay, so let's take example that we have locations, so we pass those locations. Now these locations, name itself says that there can be one or more locations, so we can pass those locations. How to pass those locations? You can just say it is another array. So array can have values Pune, Hyderabad, we can have Bangalore, right? And so on. I mean, we can have more values. So these are comma separated values. Now you imagine this can be more complex. Like we can have now Pune is just a string that we are passing, but maybe we have a complete address like city, state, country, street, all those strings are there. So we can have this as a separate inner string, right? So this way your JSONs can be more complex, but it does not mean that JSONs are complex. It is just a way of representation. Okay, now how would we, so when we get these JSONs, let's say this is what something we have created and we have sent it to some third party system, so we are going to send it as a single string. So if I show you that, so it will be something like this. You will be having one single string. So this all you are going to send to your third party systems, or in case you are receivers, so you are going to receive something like this. And when we holistically check it, so it is complex JSON string that we see, right? So this is one single string that we are going to get from third party system. Okay, now how to parse these strings when you get strings, right? So you can copy these strings. Let's say we have received it, we can go online and we can have parsers. So we can just, or we can say formatters, so we can just search for JSON formatter and we'll get beautiful formatters here. So first or second, any of these formatters you can go for, and you just give your string. So this is the string that we have received from third party. Now we can see if we have received any errors, if there is any problem with JSON formatting. So all these problems can be found just here by checking it out. Okay, so if we have received, there are no problems, so you see valid JSON, no problems, and you can see this is what you have received. Got it? So this way you can understand your JSON. Let's say there is some problem. Let's say you forgot to add comma here. So your online tools will help you here. So there is invalid stuff. They are expecting some commas here. They're saying, and you have missed it. So here it is saying that here we have missed comma, right? So our comma should be added there. So this way we can easily format online and understand what kind of strings we have received or what kind of strings we are sending. So this is how we can understand it. Okay, now this is about your formatter, online formatter. So with respect to Salesforce, now let's understand how to parse these strings, how to understand the strings and get data from it. Okay, so if I go back, this is my string, this I've received, I'll copy the string and let's go on our Salesforce org. So in Salesforce, when I go on developer console, so setting developer console, it's opening up, right? Yeah, so here, here when we go on developer console, we can go on, we can go on anonymous window, and here we can use this string and we can parse it. Okay, now to parse strings, Salesforce has given some utilities. Salesforce has given three classes. One is JSON, another is JSON generator, and JSON parser. Okay, so what JSON does, so JSON helps you to serialize and deserialize these strings. What is Deserialize, what is Serialize, we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Then JSON generator and JSON parser. So generators are going to help you to generate JSON strings, and parsers are going to help you to parse these strings. But these are separate utilities, generator and parser. But Salesforce has one beautiful utility, as I said, JSON. So that helps you to parse as well as generate strings. So with very ease, just a single line of code, you generate your string and parse your string. So let's take example. So let's create one. So I'll go on my anonymous window And as we discussed, there is JSON object. So JSON is the class in backend. This class has got certain methods. So these all are the methods that you have. Okay. Create generator, create parser, serialize strict, serialize untyped, then its constructor for JSON class, then serialize with specific null values to be passed or not. That option you can give. Then serialize pretty and serialize pretty with another same option, right? So these all are methods. So if you have seen, if you ignore first two methods, then all are your serialize and deserialize. So what is this JSON serialize and deserialize? So let's understand that first. Now let's say I have this string, okay, string str equal to some string like uh, we can say name colon, let's say Gyan easy, okay, and then let's say email, contact us at the rate gyaneasy.com, okay. So let's say this is the JSON string that we have. Now, how to parse such a JSON string? Okay, so as I said, there is a JSON parser utility which we can use, but we are not going to talk about it now. So what is the other way of doing it? So we can convert this string into a class instance and vice versa. Okay, class instance can then be converted into JSON string. So that's what we need to understand now. So let's take our earlier example and go back on your developer console. So in our earlier example, we had our string something like this, right? We had this string, right? So now we need to parse this string. We need to understand this string. Okay. So to parse and understand this string, let's I'll just show you here. So we have these all as our keys. Those now these keys should be, so we should create one class and make these keys as variables in the class. So what we need to do basically, create one Apex class. I'll just say order response parser. So let's assume that we have received or will be receiving such a strings from third-party system in Salesforce. So we need to parse those strings. So how to parse those strings? So that's what this utility now. So we have this one class. Now this class variables should be these variables. So we have, first is we have status, so we can have public string status, and that's it. Then we have second, that is customer ID, so we can have that as again string. So it's our string public string customer ID. Then we have transaction ID, so let's have something like this, public string transaction ID. Then we have third as orders, so again public. Now this order is array of your orders, array of orders. Orders is not string, it's array of orders. So we should have public list of, let's say order, list of order, and then we can say orders. Now this order in backend is a custom object that you standard Salesforce object that you have. So instead of order we can use something else. For example, I can say order details. So order details, right? So order details is my, now order detail will contain all these details, right? So for that, let's create one inner class. So public class. Now we are creating one inner class called order details. Now please understand how it is now. So each of these are my variables, and order details, this order detail is my inner class. Now now in order detail I will have these as variables, and this one single order will be added as a order in this orders variable. So such a way I have three orders, so three orders will get added under orders. So we are just defining these variables inside orders. Okay, so how to define them? We can have, later we can have, like so inner we can have public, again we had string called order id. On similar we have date, amount, and all that. So in this case public, we have this as a integer or maybe decimal, whatever it may be. So we can say decimal, we expect to receive decimal values, so we can say decimal amount. So date, so we can have public, let's say I have string date as string, so I can say public string date when this is not again just a date. So this is just a string that we have received, not date format, let's say. Then we can have this. Now date is again reserved keyword, so we can have order created date, so we can just say order created date. Let's say this is what we have received from third party, so we just need to update this here. That will just help us to avoid parsing issues. Okay, so we have this. Now we also have locations. Location is again my array. Whenever I see any array, it should be like a list of what data type we have. So it is list of public, list of, in this case we are going to receive strings, so we will just say public list of string locations. That's it. So now we have these variables. Now inside location we will be having these three. Now if we had one inner JSON here, then we had to create another class. So that's the case here, but we don't have that as an inner JSON, so we'll just go with locations. Now this is the class. If we now understand what we have received, and for that why we have created a class, so each of these we are mapping, each of these JSON keys that we are getting, we're mapping as our strings over here. See, status, customer ID, transaction ID, orders, and so on, right? So that's the here example, right? Let's go back, right? So let's go back to our this thing. I'll just save this class, and now we are going to parse it. So let's assume, I'll go here in developer console. So let's assume that we have received that as string, right? So instead of date we should have it as order created date. I'm just updating our string so that we do not get any parser errors, right? So that's one. So we have date, we should update it as this. We have date, yeah, so we're good. Yeah, now this is the string that we have received. We need to parse it, right? So for that we can create a variable of this class, right? I mean, how to do it, I'll just show you. Now for this we have one JSON utility in backend, we can use it. So JSON dot, we have received as JSON string, so just say deserialize it. So JSON dot deserialize, pass JSON string, that is str in our case, and to what we need to deserialize, we need to define. Now I need to deserialize this string, I need to read this string as this my class. So I want to read this JSON string as this Apex class. So I can say deserialize parser dot class. This is the um syntax that you have. So this is going to return. So if you have seen, I'll just show you again. So when you deserialize anything, its return type is object. So it's going to return as object. What is object? Object is base or root for all your data types. So we are going to receive root object over here, right? So we need to typecast it into this parser variable. So how to do so? So let's create instance of order parser is equals to json.deserialize. Now anything which we receive as object and we need to convert or we need to typecast it, so we need to just say in which data type you need to typecast. In circular braces, just say I want to typecast into order response parser, and what I need to typecast, so I need to typecast this data type into this. So this is how you just say typecasting. Typecasting is very important here because we just get object. This is the return type which will return type which will return anything. So we cannot define every time what this serialize should return. So Salesforce returns one base object for us. So that base we are now converting into our custom data type, that is our order response parser, right? So when you say order response parser, now this order response parser, we can now get the details. For example, we need to get details order parser dot status. Let's say we need to understand status. We can just say order parser dot this dot status, right? So this dot status is the status that we are going to receive. Let's say I need to debug this status. So I would say system dot debug order parser dot status, right? So now we can just execute this. We can say execute. Post execute, we are going to see our debug logs. So how to see debug logs? We can go here and see these debug logs. We can double click. Here we'll just say boss just show debugs only. So if you see our status is success. So we can say that status is, and we can get status. Similarly, we can debug anything. For example, I want to debug customer ID. So what customer ID we had sent? We had sent, let's say, we have sent customer ID, and that is my customer ID is order parcel dot customer ID, and so on. I mean, let's say I want to get orders, so I can just say orders are, and now I am printing my orders. So order parcel dot orders. Now this order is going to have three orders in our case, right? So if I want to know orders, like first orders order ID, then how to get it. So it's all your normal programming now. So it's all your normal programming. So I need to understand first orders, that is zeroth index, first orders order ID. So I can just say order ID, and this way I'll get order ID. So if I execute now, if we reopen our debug, I'll close old, I'll open new, and now if we see we have all these details printed. If I just say show me debug logs only, so it says status is success, customer ID is this, and order details are this, under which we have just printed our first order number, right? So order number, we can just say first order number is, and we can print it, right? I can say open log, it will immediately open me log, right? So this is my new log which has now updated string. See, easy. So my first order number is 0n001, right? So this is how we can easily parse the strings using deserialize. So there is something called as serialize and deserialize. So deserialize means deserializing JSON string into some other data type. Serialize means JSON.serialize means serialize into JSON. So let's say I have this as order parser. Now I want to convert that order parser into JSON string, back into JSON string. How to do it? So we can just say was JSON dot serialize. Now what to serialize? I need to serialize this object order parser. Now that will give me return type. If I just show you back, JSON dot serialize is going to return me string. It is going to return me string, right? So that's it. Now we are going to receive as string here when we say JSON dot serialize. So we'll just say string j string equal to JSON dot serialize. If I debug it, system dot debug, so it will JSON string is, it will give me JSON string what we had that will receive. So how we have done it? We have converted our instance, we have converted our object data type into this string. So I'll just say execute. Now if you see, I'll just say debug only. So see, I have received entire string back. So what string we had sent, we have received it back. See, we have received it back, right? Now it is just a key value pair. So what sequence we had here in string, that will not be maintained. So if you see here, transaction ID is your first string, that's absolutely fine. But we received as JSON string back, right? So that's how you serialize and deserialize using JSON utility.